So I'm a military brat. So where I am from is a little bit of everywhere. My dad was in the Air Force, and we traveled around a lot and ended up in the D.C. area in the late 60s. So I call that home. I went to school there and off to the University of Virginia after that.
So I know that nonprofits have been a big part of your life, and you've done some amazing things. And, of course, we're here to talk about Keep America Beautiful, which you've been in charge of as president and CEO for 3 years now. But I always love to give people in our series context about, what did you want to do coming out of school? Why did you get into the industry that you did? So as you were coming out of school, what did you want to do?
Yeah, if you can think back, it was when Mad Men was the hottest TV show.
Love that show.
And I was good with the words and good with the numbers, so I thought advertising might be a great place for me. And in fact, it really was. And the story comes all the way back around. But I had an opportunity during that time to work with some of our clients on the social side of what they were doing, so how they connected to community. And so this is back in the late 80s and early 90s, and corporate social responsibility and social impact as being centered in the business. These were concepts that really didn't exist quite yet, but you had CEOs and organizations that were very passionate about engaging in their community. And I was lucky enough to start to thread that needle of how you go from how the business interacts with its community and what that means moving forward.
So your resume is absolutely amazing. You've done so many different things here, and I'm always interested in why people join a certain company and what draws them to. And as I see Keep America Beautiful, I can see why they were interested in you and all that you've done. But why did you want to join them?
Yeah, it was one of those opportunities that I didn't go looking for. And I was approached by a recruiter. And do you ever have the moment where you look at a job description or you look at an opportunity and you think, oh, of course me, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
I had started in advertising, and the history of Keep America Beautiful is really rooted in our nationally known advertising, right? Like the organization started with the crying Indian and inviting Americans to pick up litter and give a hoot, don't pollute, and Woody the Woodpecker. The narrative of Keep America Beautiful is really rooted in that advertising story. And then my career also took this deep engagement in community and affordable housing, and then the environment. And so this job is really how do all of those things come together? Volunteerism, community engagement, environment and issues around the environment and climate change, and then, of course, the iconic advertising. So it was a no-brainer from the beginning for me.
And I can relate. I'm a 70s latchkey kid, so I know exactly what you're talking about when it comes to the marketing back in the old days. With all that said, let's do this. Let's give people a little context about what exactly you do. But before we get into specifics, I do want to talk about mission and vision. What is that for Keep America Beautiful?
Yeah. We believe that everyone deserves to live in a clean, healthy, and beautiful community. And for us, that means engaging people in opportunities to help clean up their community, to make decisions about how and where work needs to be done in their community, to improve recycling rates, to improve education around the importance of not littering, and then the whole green side of the equation, which for us is about tree planting and flowers and the power of beauty to really drive, improve health, drive action, and really help people get inspired and to love where they live, which is very, very important to us.
Well, I love that, and you're starting to talk about it, but if you were to give somebody a 30,000-foot view about what Keep America does and what you execute, what would you tell them exactly what you do?
Yeah, we, through a network of 750 affiliates across the country, we help communities manage litter in their towns. We organize volunteers for litter cleanups. We host recycling events. We provide recycling education, litter education, and then we help plant trees and flowers in parks and oftentimes in private streets and areas, responding to disasters from coast to coast. So that includes litter cleanups along the oceans. It includes cigarette litter prevention programs, because cigarette butts are not biodegradable. They are plastic. And so we work very hard to get this most littered item up and off the ground.
So I'm not going to make any assumptions, but I'm going to guess there are a lot of moving parts in what you do with your team, and there's so many different kinds of events and programs that you do. What's it look like behind the scenes and behind the curtain for a week as CEO and president of Keep America Beautiful? What does a week look like to you?
Yeah. Well, it's a nonprofit. So there's about a third of my week that's spent talking to donors and potential donors about our vision and programs, right? So pretty much like a for-profit CEO, your job is to inspire people and raise the money. It's just who you raise it from that might be a little bit different. So certainly I spend about a third of my time on that. Spend a third of my time, I think, with our affiliate network, hearing about the great work that's happening, finding opportunities for partnership and working with them to solve problems. And then, I think there's how do you play with partners in the field? So working with our corporate partners, Keep America Beautiful is about 85-90% funded through corporate partnerships. And so we work with those partners, some really big brands to get their employees out volunteering to help solve challenges that they and their products have with litter as well.
So tell me a little bit about some of the programs you have. Of course, you have the Great American Cleanup. You have America Recycles Day. You got Retreat. And then you've got the Cigarette Litter Prevention Program. Can you talk a little bit about each?
Sure. So the Cigarette Litter Prevention Program is a partnership with some of the tobacco companies to get cigarette butts off the ground. You can right away, if you're a business or there are other granting programs that actually set up recycling centers for your cigarette butts. You can, outside a bar or something, restaurant, you can put that cigarette butt into the can. When that can is full, the company, organization, neighborhood sends it off to our partners at TerraCycle, who turn those cigarette butts into things like park benches. Dollywood is one of our partners in this program. So in their smoking section, you put your cigarette butts, they get shipped off to TerraCycle, and new park benches come back to Dollywood. It's a great,
I love that.
Great program.
Yeah, it's cool.
The Retreat program is a very special initiative that helps communities recover both their tree canopy, but also their community relationships after disaster. So very often after a tornado, and or the wildfires or hurricanes, after the blue tarps are off the houses, and so the community is starting to stabilize and rebuild, we work with community leaders to replant tree canopy that's been lost. Unlike the local governments that can only plant on government land or land owned by school systems or something like that, we can work with local neighborhoods to plant on privately held and maintained land to replant tree canopy. And it's a 2-year process that engages the volunteers, prepares for the planting, and then keeps the volunteer engaged for about 18 months. And we don't plant those little tiny stub trees. We're planting 2-year-old saplings so that there is strength and high levels of survivability of the trees that we plant.
Jenny, I don't know if there are specific statistics that you can talk about, and I won't hold you to anything, but I'm always, being a sports guy, I'm always comparing this person and that person and those stats to that stats. When it comes to what we do here, you and your team, and getting everything going with all your programs, how do we compare with the rest of the world out there of what everybody's doing and trying to clean everything up?
Yeah, it's a mixed message, frankly, right? There are government initiatives happening in the EU and in other multinational partnerships around the country that are making great strides at policy level changes. there is opportunity always for that level of policy change, here in the U.S. I think nothing compares to the ability for American citizens to get out in their communities, to clean up litter, to care about their communities in ways that we know from our research that bridge political and social divides. This is something all of Americans can agree on. 90% think litter's a problem in their community and they can do something about it. And so I think nothing compares to what can happen when Americans put their minds together, get out and volunteer, and really take action in their local communities.
As you know, Jenny, we talked to a lot of presidents, CEOs, and entrepreneurs and leaders in this series about challenges, and I know that for-profits have their set of challenges. I try to explain to our listeners when you're running a nonprofit, it's that much harder because fundraising, and there's just so many moving parts to what you do. But with that said, beside fundraising, what kind of current challenges present themselves to you and your team currently?
Yeah, I think it is such a noisy world right now. There are so many issues and challenges coming to us from so many different directions. And finding a way to get our message out in a way that's relevant and to engage people. We have, as I said, this research that we do with the folks at Harris Polls, and we know from the latest survey that people are lonely, but people also think that accomplishing something in their community, like getting out and beautifying a local park, sounds like a refreshing break. The data says 80% respondents thought that this was a true statement. So there is noise, but there's also a solution. And so it's how do we get our solution out there? How do we say, go volunteer, get involved locally, whether it's picking up litter or cleaning up a park, planting some trees. Those things can help you, and they can help your community at a very high level. Yeah,
and that's well said. And I think what you're talking about also acts of kindness. I don't think we see a lot of those today, so that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, right? Keep America Beautiful is an optimistic endeavor in a time when we really need these things.
So I want to talk about maybe a great story. And I imagine in the 3 years that you've been president and CEO that you've seen handfuls of really amazing things. And I know that, once again, I reiterate, running a nonprofit is very hard work and it's just relentless. And then the fundraising and all the other things that go with it. With that said, there's always things that, this is why we get up every day. Something special happens. Do you have a story in the 3 years that you've been there that was really special to you? And this is why we kind of get up kind of story for us?
Yeah. I think it comes out of Keep Indianapolis Beautiful, which is one of our affiliates. And they have an amazing tree planting program in partnership with the city of Indianapolis. They do a lot of what we call brown space to green space, so taking empty lots, cleaning those up, turning them into pocket parks, or taking more abandoned parks and improving them. We know that it has a positive impact on reducing heat levels, temperatures in those neighborhoods, improving the mental health of the neighbors who live around those spaces. But in research that Indianapolis did with the University of Michigan, we saw a 12% reduction in gun violence and assault.
Wow, that's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah.
12% reduction is as good as any gun violence prevention program that's out there right now.
Yeah.
And you get all the tree benefits, right? So you want to talk about what makes you get up in the morning. Little did I know I was going to be talking about strategies to fight gun violence.
Wow, that is fantastic. I appreciate you sharing that. I did want to ask you about leadership, and if you can indulge us, because there's a lot of future entrepreneurs and leaders that listen to the series beside current CEOs and presidents. And I wanted to ask you about leadership because without any assumptions, I imagine there's just a lot of different people that you have to work with and agencies. We talked about the fundraising, and it's probably always fluid for you all the time with all the different people and the messages and communication. When it comes to leadership in your job, and I know it's specific to your journey, Jenny, but maybe just some leadership advice for all the people that are listening out there.
It's a great question, and I am forever looking for advice from others. And that may be what I focus on, which is don't go the journey alone. Find your posse, find folks who you trust, and trust them. Reach out and be collaborative. Seek advice from many sources, and then at the end of the day, don't be afraid to make the decision. Right? I think I collect a lot of information, but I'm also willing to make the decision. I think sometimes you can contemplate to a point where you are you lose the moment to be really effective. You wait too long to make a decision, and the outcome from your decision changes not by the work at hand, but because of the delay. So, get your advice and then be willing to make a decision. You're not always going to be right. You're going to have to correct, but that's what the process is for. Lately, I've been following a lot, the whole VUCA world, and now they're talking about for AI anyways, the flux world, which is decision making right now is fast, it's liquid, there's a lot of uncertainty, and it requires a lot of experimentation. And I think that is exactly how we're approaching sort of strategy and decision making in the short run, is being able to act quickly because your finances are in order, your messaging is in order, that where you're going, so that you can be more nimble in response to just a very rapidly changing environment right now.
Well, that's really well said, and that is a great segue for me of asking you about the future, because I know that you and your team are always looking about what's next. So if it's next year, the next couple of years, or a 5-year plan when it comes to Keep America Beautiful, what are you looking forward to and what are you working on?
Yeah. So right now we are in the middle of what we call the Greatest American Cleanup, which is an invitation to every American to help us pick up 25 billion pieces of litter, 25 pieces at a time. So all you have to do is go out and pick up the litter, hashtag us at Greatest25. You'll be a part of it. iHeart is actually one of our partners in that initiative, and we're really grateful for that. But as we move forward beyond to what I say, so what's happening on July 5th, 2026, right? Because this is all about getting ready for that big anniversary. What does the next day look like? And the conversation we're having is how much of what we do is still relevant and essential to communities. And then where do you go from there? And I very much want to get back to being an advertiser for Mother Nature. So how do we get back in the business? And as complex as it is to be a communicator these days, how do we get back in the business of being that number one voice for Mother Nature?
Outstanding. Well, let's do this. I've really enjoyed the conversation, but I do want to get some final thoughts from you and kind of recap what we've talked about, Jenny. So the floor is yours. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think that in this day, people are lonely and anxious, and there are solutions. Getting out in community, re-engaging with neighbors and friends and colleagues to do something active and practical is an act of optimism right now that all of us could use. So one, I invite people to get engaged. I also think that things are going to change pretty quickly right now, and being a nimble, flexible leader in this moment I think will serve all of us very, very well. And we are grateful to continue to be a partner with business across America. Keeping America Beautiful is something worth doing.
Outstanding and well said. So let's give the website, and if there's any social media also our listeners can follow you on, let's give that information to everybody.
That's great. You can learn more about Keep America Beautiful at www.kab.org. And you can find all our social channels there. We're across all the normal platforms. And we welcome your engagement. And join us, please, for the Greatest American Cleanup.
Super. Well, Jenny, thank you so much for your valuable time. Continued success to you and your team. And thank you so much. I'm glad we could feature you on CEOs You Should Know.
Dennis, thanks so much.